Trey, I think bowl season was a ringing success this year. And we talked about this kind of throughout. We didn't ever do an episode dedicated to bowl games as they were being played. But in the bowl preview that we did, you made the point that it felt like a lot fewer opt outs were kind of running rampant, and that most of the teams had at least their starting core that was wanting to finish the year out and play a bowl game. And I think that gave us a wholly entertaining couple of weeks, honestly, until we got to the playoff. And I guess a little bit past after the first round of the playoff, where maybe some players had more time to think, declare for the draft, decide to opt out. Those first 2 weeks of bowl games, man, that was some of the most entertaining football that I can remember since a kid, when bowl games like objectively mattered to everybody.
Yeah, the fewer opt-outs definitely translated to better games. It seemed like there was more buy-in from the players and coaches, like you mentioned. And look, I'm the guy that was sitting here with a plan to fix bowl season, scrap it all out at the beginning of December, because on paper, it really wasn't looking good. But when you have, I think it was twofold. I think incorporating all of the New Year's Six that we got used to during the 14 playoff into the playoff, incorporating those bowls obviously up the stature of those games. No one was going to opt out from a college football playoff quarterfinal or semifinal game. But that next tier, it was a lot of guys that either were just playing one more round, or you saw the Colorados of the world. None of their big guys opted out. I know they got blitzed by BYU, but you saw major players for the first time in a long time choosing to play in this game that so many have called meaningless, and it led to a lot of fun football.
I agree. I think just the classics that we got, the Game Above Sports Bowl, the Hawaii Bowl, not standalone games necessarily. Well, I guess they technically were standalone games, but it didn't need to be standalone to have me locked in, right? I mean, we we got done with Christmas Eve dinner, checked the score of the Hawaii Bowl, and was like, you know what? No, I think everyone's going to bed. Like, we can lock in for this fourth quarter. And it was worth it. It wasn't just a sidecar to Christmas Eve. It was like, no, this is really a quality product. So I think first and foremost, what I took away from it is that the G5 can compete. I mean, we saw the group of 5 teams go in and beat, power conference opponents. I loved seeing the way that they showed up. They wanted to finish out seasons. You had a team like Sam Houston State, right? Playing for their first ever bowl victory. Head coach leaves. Literally everybody is in the transfer portal, but they all decide to play in the bowl game because the job's not done, right? And they go out and they win the Arnell Carriers Bowl over just had it at Georgia Southern. Great win over Georgia Southern. Tough team under Clay Helton. But those are the storylines that I think really made this bowl season anyway, so worth it to watch. What were some of the best storylines that you kind of watched through bowl season?
Man, I think BYU doing what they did to Colorado, not a close game, but all that attention was on Colorado. That you could tell that the ESPN script was Colorado was going to run away with this, and we're just going to make this Shedeur and Travis Hunter ride off into the sunset, right? And BYU doing what they did, just dominating that game from start to finish.
Yeah.
Amazing. Cinema. Absolute cinema. I remember the Birmingham Bowl, I think it was, Georgia Tech and Vanderbilt. That one was a really fun game. Diego Pavia and Haynes King duking it out. Oklahoma losing to Navy the way that they did in the Armed Forces Bowl.
That was wild.
Just seemingly in control, but kind of playing with their food the whole game, and then give up a few big plays to lose that one in the final seconds, snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. Overall, there were just a lot of fun one-off games. And I'm doing like a little bit of quick research here on the fly, but viewership records were set as well in a lot of these games. You had, obviously, the playoff games drew a ton of eyeballs other than the championship. The championship was way down. We'll talk about in a little bit. But I'm looking like the Mayo Bowl had over 3.3 million. The Music City Bowl, 2.82 million. Texas State versus North Texas drew 1.7 million.
That is amazing.
Like people are watching these games and we love football. We're starved for football, obviously. But yeah, I'm just rolling down this list right now. There's tons that were over 4.5, pushing 5 million if they were on a network broadcast like ABC or Fox. So people are watching, people care about these games. I think fan bases like to pretend like they don't care when they lose and say it's a meaningless bowl game, and guilty as charged. My team lost the Vegas Bowl in embarrassing fashion, and I was coping with that. But people do care. People are watching, people are gambling, and bowl season is going to matter as long as there are eyeballs like that watching it.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I'm glad you shouted out two things that you pointed out. One, you talk about like the Mayo Bowl. I think the Mayo Bowl, the Pop-Tarts Bowl, these bowl games that lean into a shtick, but not just like any shtick. They've got to do it well. And I think those two bowl games in particular are clearly creating their own brand where, to be honest, I think the majority of college football fans, at least in our little ecosystem on Twitter of college football sickos, you could put anybody in those bowl games and we are all showing up to watch, right? Because for the Mayo Bowl, we want to know who's going to get dunked, what kind of weird shenanigans, what are they eating up in the press box dipped in, your favorite dairy. For the Pop-Tart Bowl, they've got, I mean, they're doing like musicals, basically. They've got all these people in costume and, they're killing off, they're sacrificing Pop-Tarts and they're raising Pop-Tarts from the dead. I mean, they're doing quite a bit. Just hat tip to everybody involved with all of those PR stunts. Because they're doing
6.8 million viewers for the Pop-Tarts Bowl.
That's amazing. That's amazing. That's a bowl game where Cam Ward in the second half said, "I've got my record, I'm out." And you still retained viewership. That Miami offense did nothing in the second half, and yet people still wanted to watch because they wanted to know which Pop-Tart was chosen by the MVP to be sacrificed and eaten live on national broadcast. Like, that's amazing. That's good for the sport. I love that. Secondly, you shouted out Texas State, North Texas, the First Responders Bowl. Drew Mestamaker, man. We never talked about this, but I was covering that game in person. So, it was all over our Twitter account. Hadn't made a start since freshman JV in high school, since he was 14 years old. And this kid comes out and throws for 450 yards. He gets his opportunity against a really bad defense for Texas State. And dadgummit, he almost willed North Texas to a victory. That was one of the most fun bowl games that I got to watch, bar none. And it was really epic that I got to be there in the press box for it.
Yeah, that was a really fun game. Texas State obviously getting the big win to win a bowl game for the second straight year, but future looks bright in Denton. That's another thing that I love about bowl games is even in losses, right? Coaches are going to treat these completely differently. Obviously, everyone wants to win. We just spent a lot of time talking about that. But part of the cope, if you lose, is you can look for these bright spots, right? It does the opt-outs, the bright side of even when there are opt-outs and transfer portal shenanigans are there's ways to see, okay, that wide receiver, that tackle, that safety who was sitting on the bench all year, we've been hearing about at practice reports, or we were really excited when we signed that guy. He finally got some game action and we got to actually have data points on him. So positive or negative, we can see kind of project out the future.
Gracious, how about that?